This Choircast podcast is brought to you by Heretic 2 by Matthew J. DiStefano. Ready to challenge everything you thought you knew about faith? In Heretic 2, I dive into LGBTQ affirmation, rejecting divine violence, and embracing universalism in a bold post-Christian perspective. If you're done with outdated dogma and want a justice-oriented, inclusive view of spirituality, then this book is for you. Get Heretic 2 wherever books are sold and start rethinking faith today. This Choircast podcast is brought to you by High Minds. Join host Andy Colenso and Matthew J. DiStefano as they tackle culture, justice, spirituality, and all the big questions shaping our world. High Minds isn't about talking points or hot takes. It's about deep, insightful conversation that inspires and challenges. Tune in to explore new angles, question the status quo, and elevate your thinking. Listen to High Minds wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Radical Love Life, an ongoing series of conversations with thought leaders exploring faith outside the boxes. Hosted by Mark Dilcomb and Kelly Wilson.
Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Mark. How are you today?
I am, as always, I am freaking awesome. In spite of everything that's going on, I truly am freaking awesome.
And it's not just the iced tea that's fueling you. You've got some internal.
The iced tea and there is nothing that is mood altering in this fine tea in my McDonald's plastic.
That is an adorable cup.
It is, and thank you, Marvin, our extremely awesome and talented producer and proprietor of Bravery Studio. That he had this sippy cup that works well for me. Although it actually isn't a sippy cup, it should have a thing on top of it because with my laptop sitting right next to it.
And thank you, Marvin, for stocking the vending machine with Celsius energy drink. I swear we should get them as a sponsor. I have a can in front of me
right there, along with
every episode. Yeah, Snickers. It's the keeps. That's right. Keeps me from being a hungry jerk.
And honestly, he heard it and like, oh, I think Kelly's here. Oh my goodness, we digress before we even get started. So Kelly, how are you, my friend?
I'm pretty good. It's always a challenge, or it certainly has been a challenge lately to calibrate, like with all the things going on in the world, how panicked should I be? How cautious should I be? How ready should I be? And it's it's between the poles of, oh my gosh, I'm an exile in my own country, to I'm a citizen of the kingdom of God and not any nation of this world. But then I don't want to spiritually bypass, that there's still a lot for me to do on this earth. And it's just kind of trying to thoughtfully go between those poles, be grateful for what I do have, and, live in the moment.
So well said. And the level of intelligence and how you respond to that is, I'm not flip when I say freaking awesome, because I'm in great space. I'm in the best space of my life for a lot of reasons, which I'm incredibly blessed and grateful for my reality. With that said, though, it's, I know you've got a lot going on in your family dynamic and just really with just of late, you're one of many who are truly questioning, what does the future look like? And you're not so sure what that moment is. So,
yeah, and it's getting
I love you for sharing that.
Harder and harder for, for us and people that we love to say, oh, the news makes a big deal about the administration and everything, but it doesn't really affect us in our daily lives. It's harder and harder to say that because
that's not true in your case. It could directly affect you.
In a lot of people's cases, it is affecting their daily lives.
Yep.
And
well said, brother. Well said. Well said.
And with that said, we're happy to welcome our friend Dina Nina Martinez Rutherford today. She's a good friend and has a lot to say about what's happening in the world right now. She's from lovely Madison, Wisconsin, or is in lovely Madison, Wisconsin, and she's a speaker, comedian, counselor, minister, civic leader, and so much more. Dina, Nina, it's great to have you here today.
Oh, it is great to be back with you.
Hi,
Thank
Dina
you.
Nina Martinez, Rutherford.
Hi.
Um,
You
there's
can
one,
just call me Dina Nina. The Martinez Rutherford is so obnoxious.
but that's why I like saying it because it's so obnoxious and it's wonderful. It's you. It's not even
Yeah.
obnoxious. If it was obnoxious, it's obnoxious in a beautiful way. We forgot to. There's one thing that we did. I don't think I heard you say about her credentials, and that is also that Dina Nina is alderperson for the city of Madison. Did you mention that?
I did not. I did
Okay.
not.
Yeah,
That's
Civ-
part of the civic
I
leader
think you
thing.
said
But
civic leader.
Civic
Yes.
leader. Okay, well, alderperson because
I'll take that.
I still don't understand what an alder is, other than Dina, you would explain it to be basically city council. But it's like, why does it
Yeah.
have to be an alder? Anyway,
It's funner than counselor.
well,
City
that's
council member. I
Right.
mean, call me Alder.
yeah. Hey, alder.
Just don't call me late for dinner. Oh
That's
my
right.
God. I'm my parents.
Yeah, that's right. Just don't call me late. So, Dina Nina.
Hi.
Hi.
you know, one of the reasons why we called Dina Nina was, she's really been on our mind
Mhm.
this week in particular. And Dina Nina, if you don't mind, I want to read something that I read. It was a Facebook message that really touches the core of what we're talking about, how things are affecting real human beings. She said, "It's so wild how people in my family can so easily dismiss the concerns I have about the direction of the administration so easily because I'm transgender. They know little about how I live my life. They know nothing about my values and moral compass. They know nothing about who I am as a person, and yet can so easily dismiss me as less than human. It's heartbreaking, but also makes me so glad I have incredible humans in my life who try not to dehumanize people, any people, and who want everyone's freedoms, as long as it doesn't diminish someone else's freedoms, to be ensured." And that's so much about what
Mm.
the public discourse, but also the private discourses that are happening over kitchen tables and in private lives right now. Is there are people that are trying to enforce this rule and this code and that code, and stomping all over personal freedoms, and it's kind of scary and disheartening, but also it is an opportunity for us to organize and find our community. But this really touched my heart, and wanted to get some of your reactions to what's going on, and some ideas about what we should be thinking about.
Yeah. Thank you. I've been posting things and everybody's like, I'm worried about you. Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm definitively okay and absolutely not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Both end.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's all of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm posting things in hopes that it shakes someone out of the haze that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm posting so that hopefully someone in my extended network can see that and realize that the inhumane treatment that is happening to people group, our people group, but also like immigrants and people of color, like it, more than half of the population of the United States is terrified right now,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the point. That's part of the point, because we love to avoid. I'm not gonna lie, I'm an avoider. Like, it's my pastime. Avoidance is my pastime.
Mm-hmm.
And you own it.
And I vacillate between hyper engagement and hyper avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's part of my journey right now, and I'm just gonna accept it. But my relationship with my family has been really hard, especially my mother. And it all centers around Christianity
Mm-hmm.
and her understanding of what is rigidly right,
Mm-hmm.
but tacitly incorrect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so well put,
Yeah.
because there's so many assumptions. We were just talking about this in the last episode. There's a kind of like pop culture assumption of what Christianity is, and oh, the Bible says
Yeah.
that's wrong. The Bible says that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't always align with what the Bible actually says or how people practice Christianity. It's just kind of assumed this
Yeah.
pop culture mode, and it's frustrating.
And I think it stems from the idolatrous relationship between the evangelical community and the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible is their God. Between the Bible and money, that's their God. Because you look at early Christianity, they didn't have a Bible, right?
Right? They had a bunch of the library of scattered
Right.
scriptures from all over the place.
Exactly. It was really an oral
Right.
tradition and storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah. And the message, and this is one of the things that, as somebody who turned away from the church for 20 years, didn't walk into a building because like I'm on burn. The pain that they've caused and the way they shun people has disconnected a lot of us from being able to even acknowledge it or look at our own relationship with Christianity and how we evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought I'd say this, but like I am paying really close attention to the nature and character depicted in the Bible of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the book is really about him, right? That's what it's supposed to be about. We're supposed to, like the gospel, Jesus preached a gospel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that gospel, contrary to mainstream modern Christianity, is a unity consciousness gospel, a gospel of oneness, a gospel of wholeness, completeness with the divine and each other.
Wow.
It's a gospel that pulls you inward and thrusts you outward.
Wow. Can you unpack that a little bit? The unity consciousness, how that diverges from the kind of pop Christianity we were talking about.
Well, current pop culture Christianity is divisive. It causes you to not delve inwardly. It causes you to cease rational thinking and curiosity. It stops all of that in the tracks. It suppresses your connection to self, divinity, and others. It keeps you under control. The gospel that Jesus taught was ultimate connection to the divine, to each other, and to yourself, which is also the divine.
Mm-hmm.
That's the gospel that Jesus taught. Jesus taught service to others, and that service to others draws you into relationship with them, with God, and with the divinity within ourselves, which is a complete, it finishes the electrical loop between all that is, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. So, Dina Nina, I've known you for a bit now. You've never shared this. Where has this been something that's been bubbling up with you for a while?
I think I shared it. It's just like I'm getting different language around it than before. Unity consciousness is always part of it, but I also look at some, things like the Law of One, which is channeled material. And yet within that channeled material, I have found such a deep connection to who I am. And all of the stages essentially talk about unity consciousness. Like when we look at the sages, we look at the Buddha, we look at, Hindu mystics, we look at Christian mystics. It is all about connection of divinity and connection with divinity and with each other. It always is.
Always is.
It's the oneness of all being, all existence.
If you certainly have gathered language around it, you've done a great job because you haven't, I don't, simplify is not the right word because that sounds reductive. You've made it accessible, I think is a better way that in your description of unity consciousness, and you could apply whatever faith tradition, which is true, to that. But even in the Christian context, that's the message of Christ and of the Trinity. It is in that unifying principle, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because the even as much as my faith has evolved over the years, there's always a certain evangelical part of me that's like, that sounds kind of mystical. I got a little barrier there. But
Right.
when I compare that to what I'm actually reading in the Gospels, when I see Jesus say, love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
And thereon hangs the entirety of the law and the prophets.
Yes.
That's not different than what you just said, which is it's about a connection with the divine and a connection with others. And that's, look, I'm making like
and don't forget
You
the
are.
connection within.
Right. Don't forget the
Right.
Love
connection
your
with them.
neighbor as
As much as
yourself.
yourself. Yes. Yeah.
you know?
Right. And it rewires that whole original sin, like I can't trust myself because I am inherently evil, is
Right.
if you're going to love your neighbor as yourself, it assumes that you have some kind of love for or value for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Well, unless you
And-
subscribe to the popular notion of flawed theology, which says you're a piece of shit and you can't trust yourself.
Right.
Yes. So.
Which is control. It's external.
What? No, you would never use that for control. What are you talking about? Get out of town.
But like, and you look at that method, if it's not connected all around, that electrical current will never get to finish its journey, right?
Yeah, you got to complete the circuit or else.
Yeah, you gotta, that's the word. Yeah, I'm not.
I like that.
I kind of like the circuit.
Yeah, I do too. Like I'm digging that. For our folks that get into how energy moves, and or the wiring of your house or your car or whatever. Like, yeah, you got to close the loop, dude, right? Or open the loop with that light switch. There you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's the current of your beingness. That very Eastern mystical words, but that's what Jesus taught. It's service to self and ultimate service to God, or service to others and ultimate or service to God. And if we can't acknowledge that we are part of God, that God, whether we're like a finger to the body or or a cell or whatever, we're still part of God. We're not the fullness of the divinity, right? But even Jesus talks about, I come into your body, like I come into your soul, like a part of you now, right? Like we talk, Jesus is inside of me. We say that all the time. And I have so many dirty jokes around that. But like,
okay, are we talking about Jesus or
yeah? And he also uses metaphors of like the branches grafted into the tree.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. So when we serve others, we're also serving God, and we're serving ourselves in a beautifully circular way that is healing to the collective, to the body of Christ, to the divinity. And once we can kind of connect to that, then we experience the abundant life that Jesus taught, or that it talked about in the Bible. Like, I always was so frustrated. Like, I'm miserable all the time as a Christian because I'm always trying not to sin, which is things in my nature. But I've learned but Jesus really was like, your greatest commandment is love. And that's not love with conditions. That's the universal, unconditional love. And we have a view of unconditional love as a parent, but in our human fallenness, there is still this conditionality of our relationship, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And we think, oh, I'm loving you so unconditionally. And remember when I gave you that money last year, But remember when I
I chuckle
paid for your
because
college, like all of those things. it becomes so insidiously, what's the word I'm looking for?
Conditional,
Conditional, manipulative,
manipulative works is
Yeah,
and
and a
it's
little bit passive
unintentional and
aggressive. It's kind of like
passive
passive aggressive.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
pray for you
Yeah.
to
Oh,
do the things that
that's
I
right.
want you to
That's right.
do.
Bless your heart.
I'll pray for you.
Yeah, I pray for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about sin, I've learned a lot from the Gnostic Gospels, and we've discussed that, not disgusted it.
I'm disgusted with your knowledge.
I'm discussing this with you. um, but there is in the Gospel of Sophia of Jesus Christ, and I think it's also in Mary Magdalene, but it says there's no sin other than what man creates. You are
Yes.
not fallen or broken. You are whole and complete in
Yes.
in the way that God,
Of course.
you're a complete being and soul
right.
that's been put into a body,
Yep.
and you are divine from the get-go.
Yep, you are. Divine
Mhm.
all along, baby. Divine all along. Thank you for
Right.
the pitch and plug to Divine all along the foundation. Yes. Thank you.
Right?
Thank you,
You know,
Dina Nina.
That reminds me something. I was just on the way over here. I was listening to a podcast that was with the scholar Bart Ehrman. And
Yes.
he was talking
Love
about
Letterman.
Paul and Jesus, and he, I've studied the New Testament for, at least 30 years, 40 years. Oh my gosh.
Don't do the math. Don't do the math.
Older as we speak.
Don't do that to yourself.
But it pointed out something that I had never realized before, is that Paul doesn't talk about forgiveness.
Oh, shit, I didn't know that.
Mm.
Okay, keep going.
Like
Keep
Paul
going.
doesn't talk about, 'cause people take through the Roman
Wow.
road of like, everybody's sinned, therefore you're going to die, therefore. But Paul doesn't talk about forgiveness. He talks about atonement. He's like, by grace, you are one with Christ. You are participating in the death and life of Christ. But it's not
Yeah.
you've sinned and then you ask for forgiveness. And like if you go through
Wow.
the works of Paul, and
Wow.
that division between forgiveness and atonement, which is like at one mint, that's where that word comes from, is becoming one and reconciling with God.
I have never thought about that until just now. It's like, yeah, hello, duh. That's right. At one
So-
minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's wild because Paul, is not a huge proponent of the law. He's like, the law was a good teacher,
Yeah.
but it's not going to save you. This grace,
No.
this at oneness
That's what saves you.
is what's going to save you.
Yep.
And, I sometimes wonder if kind of the spectacle of the cross was really there for our benefit. Like Jesus going like, all right, stop burning stuff. Okay. Like, I love you.
I don't disagree. We have to have things incarnated to us. We have to see manifestations, because abstract concepts we are abstract. Like we have to see, touch, and do, smell.
Right. But after years of people being like, oh man, God must hate me because there's no rain on the crops. I better go kill something and burn it, and maybe God will love me again.
Yeah.
Is the New Testament, I wonder if the point is just ultimately be like, look, this is how much I love you. Stop it. Let's just have a relationship now.
Okay, that's kind of a profound thought in and of itself. To like position the New Testament as we know it, which to Dina Nina's point, that there's certain books that were conveniently left behind in the Council of Nicaea and others.
But still have some really important stuff in them.
It is, yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
to interrupt.
Yeah, jump in.
You're not.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You are with us.
You are a guest
He was
in honor.
talking
guest
and I
there.
interrupted. So
You're the
here I
star.
am interrupting.
Yeah, go ahead.
I also want us to acknowledge that Jesus talked about doing as well as believing. Like, it is not just works, it's not just grace, it's not just love, it's all of it.
All the above, absolutely.
So we have to serve others to serve ourselves. We have to value others to serve ourselves. Salvation comes collectively, not for one individual. So we have to focus. Sorry, I don't think I articulated that as precisely as I want to. But works without faith is dead, and faith without works is worthless.
Right. It gets back to was it Bonhoeffer who criticized the whole notion of cheap grace?
Absolutely, cheap grace. He was all about that.
It's got to be.
It's got.
It's,
I was just reading about Bonhoeffer yesterday, and yes, it's
got to be.
It's got to,
making amends and making the world better, and
that's the reason why he probably wasn't so popular. I mean, in some circles, because he's like, no, you actually have to do some work. It just doesn't befall you. Which unfortunately now this is why I get kind of cranky with Christians. Hold on, be careful. Some Christians who truly believe that once you are you're baptized and you have your salvation, that you can always just keep asking for forgiveness of sins, and there's always that like act of that. I'm like, no, I don't think it quite goes that way. You can't just keep doing bad shit and it's, oh, oops, I did this and please forgive me, and just it's not like you just keep pressing the reset button.
And still, even though the Bible says all sin is equal, the church, and let's be clear, it's white evangelical fundamentalist Western Christianity. It's not Christianity. It's not.
Throw hetero in there too. Well, supposedly hetero, but
and heteronormative. Like
heteronormative, yeah.
You can be a cisgender pastor who has cheated on people, but if you're just gay and you come into a church, you're immediately shunned. That difference in the weight of sin, although we say sin's all the same. Well, let's talk about your greed. Let's talk about how you control people and manipulate people from a pulpit. Let's talk about how you are not teaching the gospel and the freedom of Christ that the Christ consciousness delivers within us. Forget about that. Listen to our standards. It is not a true Christianity. It is a Pauline theology that is distorted and twisted for Paul's own greed and desire for power after leaving one of the most powerful sects of his religion, and after leaving the power that he had as a Roman. That was
spicy.
Okay.
Spicy hot take.
I'm sassy about Paul. Like,
I didn't know this about you, that you were so sassy about Paul. Wow.
There are some things that he says that I think are quite deep and vast and incredibly ascended for the characterization that we see depicted in the Bible of Paul. And that, I believe, is the derivation of the evangelical white Christian church that came up through that. It is the space where Paul was like, had an argument with all the original disciples and created enemies with the people that were closest to Jesus. And he was like, no, I'm the one who knows him best, because he met me and I had a vision of him, like they just believed that he met them, like that Paul met Jesus on the road. I have a lot of that's very suspect to me. And so, and the gospel that Paul teaches is a gospel of managed behavior. And the gospel that Jesus talked about is the gospel of complete connection and love and compassion and a fully holistic vision of who we are supposed to be in connection and community with each other and God. Thank you.
Preach.
Yeah. I mean, it's important for us to consider. I mean, at the very baseline, I think everybody needs to know that what Jesus taught and what Paul taught are materially different.
Oh, yes.
Amen.
Like, if
Amen.
nothing else, let's.
That's very true. But Pauline being what it is, Pauline theology is the basis of so much of evangelical Christian, Protestant, fundamentalism, all of those. Like, they're really into that. I mean, most of those Roman Catholicism. So I mean, that's it touches just about all of them, unless you're somebody that's absolutely, the Bible is what it is. And thank you
Pauline
for
theology is colonial. It's
it is colonialism, really. When you
yeah,
think
it's
about
colonial. It's what's the word? It's greedy. It's power over people. It's fear over love. It is control over freedom.
Amen.
Yeah. And Jesus taught the exact opposite, right? And what we're seeing in this country is uncontrolled greed, unaccountable power, division, lack of compassion, and avoidance of the inner work.
Well, yes.
Yeah, that's what you've got these Theo bros out there going like, empathy's a sin. Like,
Yeah.
what? What?
Because Jesus was so unempathetic to people.
Yeah, he was.
Right.
Yeah, he was a dick to everybody. It's
Yeah.
He was such an asshole, that Jesus guy.
That's right.
No, like I think about. I often think about how Jesus, like if I met him in person, like he was a human being on this planet, incarnated at this moment, and he and I came into contact, and I was like, oh great, here I am trying to get some water
Right.
out of this damn well.
Hey, bro, what's up?
Yeah.
Right?
How many husbands do you have?
In. Hey, boo.
It's true that you have no. 'Cause you have
Right.
many.
So if he came today in 2025 and saw me on the street and then decided to go into one of the true churches, I think he would hang out with me more. Like, I look at the scriptures and he loved people like me.
And well, how do you
loved people like me?
So how do you identify people like you?
Trans, queer, marginalized, oppressed, not understandable to popular culture. Like, people are always like, I don't get it, and I'm like, you don't have to get it, but what you do have to get is that I'm a human being.
Yeah, that's right.
I should not have to go on news after I get elected to an office and have to say, I am a human being. I shouldn't get elected and have to be like, I'm fighting for my basic freedoms and respect under the law.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
right.
That should not even be a thing if we were truly a Christian country.
And yet every day there's more and more legislation that's trying to that's trying to erase your existence.
Yeah.
Which is tragic and heartbreaking and infuriating. And
yeah. I was watching something the other day, and I wrote this down because I felt like it was so important for me to know this, because I'm incredibly I'm a pacifist. I'm anti-violent. I think war is immoral in any way, shape, or form. I think greed is also immoral and disgusting. But I got that, and I've thought about murder, and I don't like it. Like, it makes me feel uncomfortable when I visualize very graphic things happening to certain people.
Thank you for saying that, by the way, and sharing that publicly, because I've been doing that too. So Yeah.
And I don't like that. I don't
No.
like that about me. It is
Yeah.
it is not human. It devalues humanity.
It does.
Even if that person has very very little moral character that would be redeemable, that person is still a human being, and I should love them in a way. I don't have to allow them or acquiesce to their whims. But anyway, so I find myself very angry. I'm angry at how they've manipulated my mom. I'm angry how they're manipulating people on a daily basis. And someone, and I don't know who it was because it was in one of my YouTube videos that were just streaming while I was working,
Mm-hmm.
but they said that anger is the part of you that loves you the most.
Wow. Okay, say that again because I've not ever thought that. So please repeat.
Right. That anger is the part of you that loves you the most.
Ooh.
That's that makes sense in that, you know, it's where you start drawing boundaries. You start going, wait a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
God says my value is this, or I feel the worth in me of God, the divinity inside of me. I love that part of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that I can show up in emotion and still lead. I love that I can tell people how crappy my day has gone and still love that person, that person inside of me. I love that. And so I don't love the violent thoughts, but
Mm-hmm.
knowing that, thinking, reframing it, not being ashamed of being angry, because angry is just an emotion that God put in us. Not being ashamed of outbursts, not being ashamed, not limiting ourselves because societal expectations demand behavior or decorum, but being true to who we are. That anger is me saying you need to fight for yourself. You need to fight for your divinity. And not fight. I don't love that word, but I need to resist so that I can. All the words feel wrong though. Let me like resistance feels wrong. It's true and it doesn't feel right. Fight doesn't feel right, but I have to hold center,
Mm-hmm.
stabilize myself, knowing that my worth does not come from my wealth. It does not come from my possessions. It does not come from my power. It definitely doesn't come from my wealth. My power is because of the divine nature that lives within me.
Wow. And it's there's precedent for it. I mean, if you look at the Psalms, if you look at the prophets,
Mm-hmm.
the prophets were not
Yeah.
nice guys who just rolled into town and were like, we think you really should do things differently.
No.
And they were wild and angry sometimes. And
Yeah.
that passion fueled their need to speak truth to power.
Yeah.
One of the words that you used was you were talking about being able to lead. And I want to make space for a term that we were talking about before the episode is transformational leadership. What does that mean to you, and how should we be looking for that?
Well, I also like to call it whole self leadership.
Okay.
Those of us who are showing up and doing the work right now are the luminaries. Those of us who are doing the inner work are the luminaries. We are the ones who are bringing humanity into the next cycle or phase of whatever society, humanity, whatever we're going into. All of us who are having these conversations and showing up and doing the work are the ones who are leading everything. And we've got to think about leadership and the way we lead in different ways. People over power always. Dignity, respect, but it requires us to, one, show up as authentic as possible, be able to tell a compelling and inspiring story, engaging so that people are motivated to participate. It's also welcoming new ideas. Like our knowledge and understanding and power is not meant for me to hoard. It's meant for me to share. And so being able to not empower people like, I'm going to help you out of the goodness of my heart, but by sharing knowledge and not fearing replacement. We are so tied to a lack mentality. Like I can't give my power to somebody else because it competes with me.
Right. That zero sum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. The way through is collectivist in nature. It's all of us together. It's sharing power alongside, not power over, not power under, but power alongside. It's sharing energy. And more than anything, it is, you can't be transformational in your leadership without transforming yourself. You have to do the inner work every day. It requires that you connect with yourself, value yourself, refill your tank so that you can share your energy, your experience, your vital resources, so that you can share that. It's collectivist. That's the future. That is what the divine calls us into. Did that explain it?
Yeah,
You did an
yeah,
awesome
and
job.
it's so, it's so different than what our culture values, because it's so much about, look, I want to show my results, I want to be recognized, I want to be paid, I want to be, I want to appear righteous because of the work that I've done, and we can't really control the results of what we do.
Right.
We just got to do what we're meant to do. And we can't know what we're meant to do without some kind of self-examination.
Right. And let me be clear. We don't get to take anything with us when we shuffle off this mortal coil. We do not own land for eternity. We do not own possessions. We do not collect people. Our power over people diminishes the moment we take our last breath. It's gone. You can't take any of this with you. But what you can take is the good you do, the relationships you create, the love you give, and your connection with the divine, because on the other side, whatever that looks like, we are embraced, encapsulated, and robed with light and love and freedom, ultimate freedom and peace. And until we get there, we cannot rely on the physical things that we have. We cannot rely that my power is going to bring me eternal wealth, because when your soul exits this physical form, you don't have it anymore. So the last few years of my life, how many ever that is, this sounds so dumb and cheesy, I want to stack up my treasures in heaven.
It's not cheesy at
That's
all.
absolutely, that's the message, that we're citizens of the kingdom of heaven, and it's coming.
Yeah.
It's already here.
Here, as above, so below.
Yeah.
It's right here with us. Wow.
Yeah.
I regret that we are getting to the top of the hour, because we're going to have to wrap things up, and I feel like we're just getting warmed up.
I know. Dina, you come in
you
and
are preaching, and we're having a little
How am I like
revival
two
here.
episode, the 2 episode translating?
I don't know. I think that puts you on a special pedestal. I'm just saying. So
That's right. Too much for one episode to hold.
yeah,
She
indeed.
talk a lot.
Yeah. Well, and what you said there was incredibly wise, Dana. I just love you to death.
Same.
You just bring what needs to be brought. I don't know how to say it. Like you bring it every single time, and this episode is no different. So.
And if people want to find more of your work, your talks, should they go to your website?
LadyLaughsComedy. I'm sorry. Woo. I have like 3 kind of things going on. DinaNina.com. My website is a mess right now, so please don't judge me. But Light of Love Fellowship is also kind of part of my ministry. It's about creating a safe space for all people, but especially queer people, to be able to seek and connect with divinity and learn more and practice different untraditional spiritualities that you don't expect. Let me explain real quickly. I'll try to be brief.
Go for it.
So there are a bunch of teachers that I really find on YouTube, and I really love them, right? And I'm learning a lot, and I really am enjoying them. And then all of a sudden they'll start praising somebody that's anti-trans, or that I know is toxic for my community. And then the next thing I know, they start saying anti-trans things, and I'm like, I was getting so much inspiration and learning so much, and now your anti-queerness is exposed, and I feel unsafe. And so I want to create a safe space where queer people can explore spirituality and connection with divine and community in a way that feels safe and accessible to them, because consciousness is accessible to everyone, not just people who spend 8 hours a day in meditation.
Right.
I don't.
No.
So lightoflovefellowship.com, and then you can find me on all the socials at Dina Nina XO. Please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing your energy and your insights and your love and your presence with us. Again, I'm sorry that it's so short, because I feel like we could really go for a while, but we'll
have you back.
You are welcome back anytime. Anytime you want to come back, and we send our love and support to you as well.
Thank you. I always feel it. And my YouTube, I'm gonna start posting a lot more videos.
Good. Can't wait.
So feel free to
bring it.
I'm there.
Okay. Thank you, Nina.
All right. Thank you.
Much love. Thanks for listening to this episode of Radical Love Live, hosted by Mark Dilcom and Kelly Wilson. Recorded at the Bravery Studios in Garfield, New Jersey. All rights reserved. Find our episodes on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And check us out at radicallovelive.com, along with our personal websites at markdilcom.com and kellywilson.com. This is Radical Love Live, where we explore faith outside the boxes.
Embark on a journey to the heart of an isolated and restrictive island where secrets simmer beneath the surface. In Brandon Andrus's What Can't Be Hidden, follow Thura as she uncovers the dark truths of Patrida, navigating through betrayal and redemption. This tale of courage, love, and the quest for freedom will captivate you from the very first page. Get What Can't Be Hidden, available now from Choir Publishing.
This Choircast podcast is brought to you by my book, Unless a Seed Falls to the Ground, Welcoming the Death of the Whiteness Gospel. I wrote this story as a plea for white Christian America to enter into a season of hospice spirituality, to recover from the cancerous lie that we can start over, be in charge, and recover some original purity of Christianity. One friend calls it a love story to the church, the United States, and the entire human family. It's available now on Amazon.
Are you ready to embrace a deeper, more intentional way of living? Introducing Deep Calls to Deep, Meditations for Your Spiritual Journey, Volume 1 by Brandon Andrus. Deep Calls to Deep offers a 1.5 years of weekly meditations to inspire spiritual growth and guide you toward a more meaningful, embodied life. Order your copy today wherever books are sold and begin your journey into greater connection and purpose. Deep Calls to Deep. Let your soul awaken.